The Galactic Council had not seen humans in centuries. In all that time, the species had been little more than a curiosity, a minor footnote in the vast archive of interstellar civilizations. Most council members assumed humans were too small, too primitive, too unpredictable to matter. And yet, here they were again, arriving quietly but unmistakably in the heart of the Council's capital, orbiting the planet Echelon Prime. The Council chamber was a marvel of engineering, a sprawling structure suspended in space, its walls made of shimmering alloys that seemed to absorb and reflect the ambient starlight. From the observation decks, one could see entire nebulae stretching across the horizon, pulsars flickering in the distance, and the slow dance of ships maneuvering in the orbital lanes. Representatives of countless civilizations filled the chamber, beings of every shape, color, and size, some with translucent skin and liquid eyes, others with multiple limbs or exoskeletal bodies. Their voices, amplified by the Council's translation system, created a symphony of alien languages, sometimes harmonious, often discordant. "Do you think they will bring more of those primitive fleets?" asked a tall, silver-scaled being, named Thylar, the delegate of the Quirilian Empire. Its voice vibrated through the chamber like low-frequency thunder. The smaller delegates laughed, a sharp, clicking sound from the insectoid creel, a gurgling hum from the aquatic Cerithians. "No fleet, no weapons," said a slender figure with luminous wings, representing the Aelorians. "It's just humans, always full of surprises, or foolishness." The Council's anticipation was palpable. Rumors had spread for weeks that the humans were returning, but no one expected them to arrive in the unassuming vessel that now drifted into the docking bay. It was small, sleek, and painted in a simple, matte gray. There were no aggressive markings, no overt displays of technology. For a species capable of interstellar travel, it was almost modest. Inside the chamber, the council leader, a being named Magnus Voren, a hybrid of reptilian and crystalline forms, tapped a claw against the ceremonial podium. His voice, amplified through the chamber's system, silenced the chatter immediately. "Order!" he bellowed. His crystal spines shimmered as he spoke, refracting light across the chamber. "The humans are here. Let us see what they bring. Words, please, or the empty bravado of a minor species." A hush fell over the assembly. The humans did not rush in with fanfare, nor did they send an army to announce their arrival. Instead, a single human representative stepped from the vessel, a middle-aged man in simple attire. His brown eyes scanned the council chamber, calm and unafraid. He did not bow, nor did he demand attention. He merely walked forward with quiet authority. For a moment, the delegates were stunned. The humans were always different. Their courage, their audacity, and their quiet confidence had a way of unsettling even the most powerful beings. "Greetings," the human said, his voice steady and clear. "I am Captain Elias Ward, representing the United Human Colonies. I speak on behalf of humanity." A ripple of murmurs passed through the council. The humans were known to be blunt, but no one expected the words that followed. "We have decided to withdraw from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, humanity will no longer participate in council affairs, trade negotiations, or political alliances. We are leaving entirely." Silence gripped the chamber. Some delegates blinked, or the closest equivalent in their species. Others stiffened, their limbs trembling with indignation. The concept was absurd. Humans were leaving, voluntarily. Magnus Voren's crystal spines flickered with irritation. "You leave?" he asked, each word vibrating through the chamber. "This is unprecedented. The Council relies on human participation. Without you—" "We have made our choice," Ward interrupted, calm but firm. "We will no longer allow ourselves to be pawns in political games that compromise our ethics, our colonies, and our species' future. We are walking away." Some council members snorted dismissively. "They will return," said a heavy, amphibious delegate, Greylore of the Cerithians. "No species abandons the council permanently. Humans are humans." Ward shook his head. We will not return. Not for power. Not for recognition. Not for threats. Our decision is final. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted, argued, and waved their appendages in indignation. The translators struggled to keep up with the torrent of alien languages. One faction demanded immediate sanctions against humanity. Another argued for diplomacy, claiming this withdrawal could lead to instability across multiple star systems. In the midst of this uproar, Ward remained still, observing the chaos with quiet patience. He did not shout, plead, or threaten. He simply stood, letting the council members wrestle with the reality of a species refusing to play by their rules. As hours turned into a full day, the council's panic began to manifest in more tangible ways. Trade routes controlled by humans were disrupted. Several council-dependent colonies reported shortages of critical supplies. The first hints of economic collapse appeared as markets reliant on human exports began to fail. The humans, meanwhile, were already implementing their plan. Across their star systems, they were strengthening colonies, building self-sufficient habitats, and establishing secure trade networks independent of the council. It was not a show of aggression. It was a quiet, efficient preparation for a future without the council's interference. By the second day, the council convened a special emergency session. Delegates bickered endlessly, blaming one another, debating strategies, and struggling to assert authority. But one thing was clear: the humans were gone, and their absence was creating a ripple effect far larger than anyone had anticipated. "Perhaps we underestimated them," said the Alorian delegate, wings trembling slightly. "Their absence, it's destabilizing everything." Thyler's eyes narrowed. "No, this is chaos born of their arrogance. They think walking away gives them power. They are fools." Yet even as Thyler spoke, a small seed of doubt began to grow in many delegates' minds. Humans were not demonstrating typical weakness or fear. They were not acting irrationally. They had made a deliberate choice, a choice that, if left unchecked, might give them a kind of influence no force could grant. As the council debated, Captain Ward returned to his ship. He walked past the docking bay's guards, past curious observers, and into the quiet, sterile corridors of the human vessel. Around him, the crew moved with calm precision. No fanfare, no arrogance. "We've done what needed to be done," said Commander Liara Chen, Ward's second in command. "The council will scream, shout, and scramble, but we are free." Ward nodded. "Freedom is quiet. Influence is quiet. Let them panic. Let them fight their own disunity. We do not intervene unless we choose. We walk away, and the universe will notice. Slowly, yes, but it will notice." Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. Ships of countless species moved like insects caught in a swarm of light. But humanity's path was clear, unobstructed by politics or threats. Their withdrawal from the council was not an act of weakness. It was an act of strategic independence, of quiet defiance, and of extraordinary confidence in themselves. Back. In the council chamber, the chaos continued. Voices rose in anger and confusion. Alliances began to fracture. Blame shifted from one faction to another, and the first cracks in council authority became visible. And yet, not a single council member realized the subtle truth. The humans were not gone in the way they thought. They were building, thriving, and quietly preparing for the moment when the council would come to understand that influence does not always come from power. Sometimes it comes from walking away. By the time the chamber finally fell into a tense silence, the humans were already leaving orbit. The council could only watch, powerless and bewildered, as the small human vessel disappeared into the vastness of space. A species they had dismissed, underestimated, and ridiculed had just done the impossible. It had declared independence from the most powerful political assembly in known space. And for the first time in centuries, the council felt something they had long ignored: fear, not of humans attacking, but of what humanity might achieve by simply choosing their own path. The stars waited, indifferent and vast. Humanity moved forward, steady and deliberate, leaving the council to wonder how one small species could create such monumental chaos without firing a single weapon. The stage was set. The Galactic Council would never be the same. The council chamber had not seen such confusion in centuries. Delegates argued endlessly, their voices overlapping, their limbs and appendages gesturing wildly. Ships orbited Echelon Prime in growing numbers, sent by anxious civilizations hoping to intervene, or at least understand what had gone wrong. For days, the council had tried to contact the humans. Messages were sent across every communication channel, coded and encrypted, polite and demanding. Yet all went unanswered. Humans had vanished, leaving nothing but a calm declaration of withdrawal. They did not retaliate. They did not plead. They simply walked away. In the first hours, many council members had laughed at the humans' audacity. They will return, Thyler had predicted confidently. They are small, fragile, and foolish. We need not fear them. By the second day, that confidence began to fade. Trade routes that humans had managed, minor but crucial, started failing. Supplies of rare metals, medical compounds, and energy crystals became scarce in sectors that had relied on human colonies. Markets crashed, and panic spread among species that depended on these resources. Graylor, the amphibious Sorithian delegate, watched in horror as reports flooded in. "The humans, they are actually leaving us in trouble," he said, gurgling in disbelief. This was not a bluff. The council convened emergency sessions, but nothing seemed to work. Every plan to mitigate human absence only led to more disputes. One faction blamed another for over-reliance on human colonies. Another faction suggested immediate forceful intervention, an idea that caused near riot among the delegates. Meanwhile, humanity was quiet, deliberate, and efficient. In distant star systems, human engineers, scientists, and leaders worked together to strengthen their colonies. Communications between colonies were secure, ships were reinforced, and defenses were upgraded, not in preparation for attack, but to ensure independence. Captain Elias Ward oversaw the operation from his ship, coordinating with colony governors through secure channels. "Do not react to their threats," he told his commanders. "We are not attacking. We are not negotiating. We are simply walking our path. Let the council panic. That is their weakness, not ours." Commander Liara Chen, standing beside him, nodded. "It is strange," she said. "They expect us to beg, to negotiate, to fear them. But all we do is continue. And still, they are unraveling." Across the galaxy, the effects of human withdrawal were becoming undeniable. Systems that relied on human transport fleets reported delays that crippled their economies. Research collaborations stalled. Diplomats found themselves unable to enforce treaties that had depended on human mediators. Even council intelligence networks faltered, because human analysts had quietly been central to gathering and verifying information across multiple sectors. Back on Echelon Prime, the council's sense of superiority was cracking. The Elorian delegate, normally calm and measured, fluttered her wings anxiously as she addressed the chamber. "We thought the humans were insignificant, a minor species with little power. Yet without them, our structure fails. Their absence, their very silence, is destabilizing everything we rely on." "Silence is not weakness," murmured another delegate, a crystalline entity named Zerath. Its facets shimmered as it spoke. "It is clarity. Humans are proving that influence is not always about presence. Sometimes absence is more powerful." This realization sent waves of panic through the assembly. Many factions began blaming one another. Some argued that the humans' withdrawal was a deliberate act of war. Others realized that humans had acted without aggression, without malice, and yet still caused chaos. Graylor's frustration boiled over. How can a species so simple disrupt centuries of governance without firing a single weapon? He demanded, slapping the council podium with his slimy appendage. "This is madness." It was not madness. It was calculated human strategy, a combination of independence, intelligence, and ethics. Humans had realized that their presence in the council was not advancing their long-term interests. By walking away, they exposed the council's fragility while protecting their colonies from entanglement in political games that served no one but the powerful factions. On distant colonies, the human people themselves reacted with quiet determination. Families, engineers, farmers, and explorers worked together to ensure that their communities would thrive without reliance on the council. Habitats were upgraded with renewable energy systems, food production became more efficient, and scientific projects accelerated. One human scientist, Dr. Naomi Reyes, explained the approach during a communications briefing. "We do not seek control," she said. "We seek autonomy. By maintaining independence, we protect ourselves and indirectly demonstrate to the galaxy that influence does not require domination. It requires competence, resilience, and integrity." The statement was simple, yet profound. It would be years before other species fully understood the power embedded in that philosophy. For now, the Council was too distracted by their own panic to notice. Ships sent to scout or coerce human colonies found nothing aggressive. Humans were present, organized, and self-sufficient, but they offered no confrontation. Every attempt to provoke or manipulate them failed. "Why do they not respond?" one frustrated council member demanded. "We must act. They cannot be allowed to undermine the council." Zerath's crystalline facets reflected the chamber's light. "Perhaps that is the point," it said. "The humans act without aggression. And yet, by acting in their own interest alone, they demonstrate a power we cannot claim. Their strength is in autonomy, not control." Meanwhile, the council began to fracture. Alliances that had lasted centuries began to dissolve under pressure. Factions turned on one another, each blaming others for relying too heavily on human colonies. Trade agreements collapsed, and disputes that had been managed for generations erupted into open arguments. Ward and his crew monitored the council from afar. "Look at them," Ward said quietly, watching the holographic displays of the chamber. "They are trying to control everything, yet they cannot even control themselves. This is what we have always seen, but they never believed it." Liara Chen smiled slightly. "It is ironic," she said. "They considered us insignificant, yet our absence, our refusal to participate, is more destabilizing than any weapon they could wield." The human strategy was not just about survival. It was about demonstrating a principle. By stepping away, they revealed the fragility of institutions built on fear, pride, and overconfidence. They were not seeking revenge or recognition. They were simply asserting their independence, and in doing so, they reshaped the balance of power without firing a single shot. Weeks passed, and the Council's panic deepened. Minor disputes escalated into threats of war between factions. Some proposed military action against human colonies. Others advocated for negotiations, fearing that any aggression would backfire. The Council had lost cohesion, and every attempt to regain control only made the situation worse. Humans, by contrast, continued quietly to strengthen their colonies. Terraforming projects accelerated. Education systems expanded. Communication networks became independent of Council infrastructure. All the while, they maintained a posture of calm, competent autonomy. One young colonist, a teenager named Arik, asked his mentor, "Why don't we just show them our weapons? Why not prove we are strong?" His mentor, an older engineer named Marin, shook her head. "Strength is not just weapons. The Council's fear is not because we can fight. It is because we can thrive without them. That is a power no army can create. That is why they panic." The human people began to notice the subtle changes as well. Colony morale was high. For the first time, humans were free from the constant manipulation and politics of the Council. They could innovate, explore, and thrive on their own terms, and, far away, the Council continued to crumble. Ships orbited Echelon Prime in confusion. Factions accused one another of betrayal. Negotiations stalled, and the humans quietly continued to walk their path, leaving chaos in their wake without ever intending it. By the end of the first month, it was clear. The humans' absence was more powerful than any presence could have been. The Council had underestimated a species that was neither aggressive nor arrogant. They had assumed humans were small, insignificant, and easily controlled. They had been wrong. Humans were proving, quietly and deliberately, that the universe did not need them. To dominate, to influence, Independence, competence, and moral clarity could destabilize the mightiest institutions, and the council, blinded by hubris, could only scramble, argue, and wonder how a minor species had caused such a monumental ripple across the galaxy. Captain Ward observed the stars from his ship's bridge. The galaxy stretched endlessly before him, full of possibilities and unclaimed opportunities. The council's panic, the disputes, the disarray, all of it was irrelevant to the humans' purpose. They were free. They were self-reliant. They were walking their path. Months had passed since the humans walked away from the Galactic Council, and the ripples of their absence had grown into waves of chaos. What had begun as shock and confusion had now evolved into open fractures. Old alliances that had lasted centuries were crumbling. Factions that had once worked together to maintain order now accused each other of incompetence, greed, and betrayal. The council chambers, once a symbol of unity and interstellar governance, had become a theater of endless arguments. Delegates shouted, flailed, and even displayed aggressive behaviors that had been considered taboo for centuries. Voices overlapped, holographic displays flickered with tension, and the chamber's advanced translation system struggled to keep up. Magnus Voren, the council's leader, paced his podium nervously. The crystalline spikes along his back reflected the chamber's lights in sharp, trembling patterns. His mind, usually sharp and controlled, was now clouded with worry. For centuries, he had believed in the council's authority. Now, that authority was slipping like sand through his fingers. "Order," he bellowed, but no one listened. Delegates continued to argue over failed trade routes, missing resources, and human absence. Zerath, the crystalline entity, floated calmly amidst the chaos. Its reflective facets shimmered as it observed the disputes. "It is remarkable," it said quietly to a nearby Elorian delegate. "A species once dismissed as insignificant has shown more power in absence than any of us possess in presence." Elorian, wings trembling, whispered back, "They are not here, and yet they control everything. Without a fleet, without armies, without a word, they have undone centuries of governance." It was true. The humans' withdrawal had not only disrupted supply lines, but had also shattered trust among the Council's member civilizations. Factions accused one another of hoarding resources, sabotaging trade, and failing to plan for human absence. Meetings intended to resolve conflicts ended in hostility, sometimes erupting into violence. Greylor, the amphibious delegate, slammed his slimy appendages against the council's podium. "This is outrageous," he gurgled. "We relied on humans, for minor logistics, for communication, for verification of treaties, and now, nothing. How can a species we dismissed cause such collapse?" Others nodded, their own anger simmering. Some factions were plotting military action against human colonies, hoping to coerce compliance. Others argued that the humans' independence proved a critical point, that the Council's own arrogance had made it fragile. Yet even as the Council floundered, humans were quietly thriving in the stars. Captain Elias Ward monitored the chaos through the communications network. From his ship, he watched holographic displays of Council disputes and mismanaged fleets. The humans did not celebrate the Council's failures. They did not taunt or threaten. They simply observed, continuing their own work, confident in the knowledge that they were free from interference. "We continue as planned," Ward said to Commander Liara Chen. "No reaction, no engagement. They scramble, and we thrive. That is all we need to do." Liara nodded, her eyes scanning reports from distant colonies. "It is almost poetic," she said softly. "They underestimate us, yet everything they believed about control is crumbling. And we do nothing. We just exist." The human colonies had begun implementing long-term projects designed to ensure independence and self-sufficiency. On newly terraformed worlds, entire ecosystems were being carefully established. Renewable energy systems replaced older technologies dependent on council resources. Education networks expanded, teaching future generations skills to thrive without reliance on any outside authority. One colony, New Horizon, had become a model of efficiency. Farms produced food at unprecedented rates. Water recycling systems ran with near-perfect precision. Engineers developed transportation systems that could operate without council supervision. Scientists, free from bureaucratic oversight, began projects that had been delayed for decades. Dr. Naomi Reyes, overseeing one of the scientific hubs, explained the strategy to her colleagues. "The council believes influence comes from dominance," she said. "But we are demonstrating a different kind of power. Influence can come from competence, integrity, and independence. We are shaping the galaxy, not by controlling it, but by showing that order can exist outside their system." Even younger humans began to understand the subtle power of their independence. Teenagers, students, and apprentices were taught not just science and engineering, but also strategy, diplomacy, and the importance of calm, deliberate action. Arik, a young cadet, asked, "If we do not fight, if we do not confront them, how can we have power?" Marin, his mentor, smiled. "Power is not always about confrontation. Sometimes the greatest power is quiet, steady, and undeniable. Watch the council. They scramble, panic, and fracture while we build, plan, and grow. That is influence." Back on Echelon Prime, the council's fractures became impossible to ignore. Minor disputes escalated into open confrontations. Trade agreements fell apart. Factions began to form around ideology rather than cooperation. Some believed in coercion against humans, others believed in appeasement, and a few, quietly, began to question the council's entire system of authority. Magnus Vorin struggled to maintain control. He called for emergency votes, special committees, and mediators. But every attempt to regain cohesion failed. The council had lost faith in itself. Without human presence to stabilize or mediate disputes, old rivalries surfaced with a force that threatened total collapse. Meanwhile, humanity's presence in the galaxy expanded quietly. They were establishing trade with civilizations that had never joined the council. Some were new species, curious and unaligned. Others were small but capable civilizations who recognized the wisdom in human independence. Trade routes that the II Council had ignored were now thriving under human oversight. Scientific collaborations and exploratory missions flourished, unimpeded by politics or corruption. Captain Ward watched the expansion with satisfaction. "We are not conquering," he said. "We are creating. That is what they cannot understand. Their power relies on chaos and control. Our strength relies on growth and cooperation, and they cannot touch it." Liara smiled. "It is strange, isn't it? They see us as weak. They think absence is a failure. Yet our absence destabilizes them more than any war could." The council, desperate and confused, sent emissaries to human-controlled space. They attempted diplomacy, coercion, and even threats. Each attempt failed. Humans engaged only on their own terms, with calm, firm communication. No treaties, no compromises that would compromise their independence. The council realized that humans were untouchable, not because of weapons, but because they refused to participate in politics that served others more than themselves. Greylor groaned in frustration. "They laugh at us from the stars. They have not attacked, not stolen, not destroyed, and yet we crumble." Others nodded in silent agreement. A few delegates began to murmur doubts aloud. "Perhaps we were wrong," whispered a young Aelorian delegate. "Perhaps the council depends too much on control. Perhaps strength does not always require dominance." It was a dangerous thought in the chamber. Factions erupted again, some defending the old ways, others questioning the foundation of the council itself. The very structure that had once commanded the galaxy was now threatened from within, by its own members reacting to human absence. And the humans continued to grow quietly, steadily, deliberately. New colonies thrived. Exploration missions charted unknown systems. Scientists developed technologies that the council had long suppressed for political reasons. The human fleet, small but highly advanced, patrolled only when necessary to protect. Trade in colonies, never to intimidate. One day, Captain Ward addressed his officers. "We do not intervene," he said. "We do not manipulate. We do not fight. We build, We explore, and we teach. Let the council crumble on its own. That is our advantage. They cannot understand it, and they cannot stop it. Our influence grows, not by dominance but by being competent, ethical, and independent. Marin, standing beside him, nodded. And the galaxy notices, even if they do not realize it. Every independent colony, every thriving project, every species that chooses to trade with us quietly shifts the balance of power. Even young humans began to notice subtle changes in the galaxy. Traders whispered of human colonies offering better goods, safer transport, and more reliable information. Scientists spoke of research hubs in human-controlled space that operated without political interference. Explorers shared tales of discoveries in systems once neglected by the Council. Humans were quietly shaping the galaxy. Back in the Council, the fractures deepened. Votes failed. Trade disputes escalated. Factions openly clashed, sometimes violently, over who was to blame for the human withdrawal. The very foundation of the Council's authority was eroding, and no one had yet realized that this erosion was not accidental. It was a consequence of the humans' deliberate independence. By the end of the third month, the Galactic Council was no longer a unified body. Its authority was questioned openly, its treaties ignored, its power fractured. Humans, meanwhile, continued to walk their path, building colonies, exploring new systems, and strengthening alliances with civilizations that valued competence and ethics over domination and politics. And in doing so, they were creating a quiet but unstoppable influence. The galaxy was shifting, almost imperceptibly at first. Ships continued their routines, colonies went about their work, and distant stars burned as they always had. Yet beneath the surface, the foundations of interstellar politics were shaking. The Galactic Council, once the unquestioned authority of countless star systems, had become a fractured and chaotic assembly. Factions quarreled endlessly, trade routes failed, and old alliances broke apart. And through all this, humans moved silently, steadily, and deliberately. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his eyes scanning the holographic displays of distant colonies and new exploration zones. The humans were no longer just walking away from the Council. They were quietly becoming a force the galaxy had to acknowledge. "Reports from New Dawn?" Ward asked. Commander Liara Chen glanced at the display. "The colony has completed its energy grid upgrade. It now operates independently of Council-controlled resources. Agricultural output has increased by 30%. Trade agreements with neighboring systems are flourishing, and all without Council oversight." Ward nodded. "Excellent. Continue monitoring supply lines. Make sure no one interferes. That is all. We do not impose. We protect only when necessary. That is our strength." The key to humanity's rise was subtlety. Humans did not attack, dominate, or manipulate. They simply built, improved, and demonstrated competence in every sphere. Technology advanced quietly. Research hubs produced innovations in medicine, energy, and propulsion that the Council had long suppressed for political reasons. Education programs across colonies produced generations of engineers, scientists, and diplomats capable of independent thought and action. In the Council chambers of Echelon Prime, the impact was becoming impossible to ignore. Delegates had long ceased pretending they understood humans. Every faction blamed the others for the disruption caused by human absence. Yet the truth was more unsettling. Humans had not caused chaos through action. They had caused it through independence. Zerath, the crystalline delegate, floated silently in one corner of the chamber. Its facets reflected the chaos around it, flickering with distorted light. "Observe," it said quietly to the Aelorian next to it. "They have done nothing, yet the galaxy bends around them. Influence without intervention. This is power. We cannot claim." The Aelorians' wings trembled. They do not fight, they do not dominate, and yet their presence or absence reshapes everything. How can a species so ordinary achieve such effect? It was precisely because humans were ordinary by Council standards that they were extraordinary. They did not rely on fear, intimidation, or manipulation. Instead, they relied on intelligence, cooperation, ethics, and resilience. By refusing to play the Council's games, they exposed the fragility of a system built on hubris and control. Back in human space, colonies continued to expand and thrive. New worlds were terraformed with care, ecosystems balanced, and habitats made self-sufficient. Exploration teams charted systems previously ignored by the Council, encountering civilizations that had never been part of galactic politics. Many of these species, curious and cautious, chose to engage with humans for trade and knowledge. Captain Ward observed one such mission, the Pathfinder, reporting back from a newly discovered system. First contact has been peaceful. The inhabitants are intelligent, cooperative, and open to trade. No interference from the Council. Proceed with cultural exchange protocols. Liara smiled. Every alliance we form, every system that chooses to work with us, strengthens our position without aggression. It is remarkable. We grow quietly, yet undeniably. Even within human colonies, the principle of silent ascendancy guided policy. Leaders were selected not for dominance, but for competence. Decisions were made through consultation, evidence, and ethics. Conflict was resolved with negotiation and logic, not power plays. The result was stability, prosperity, and rapid progress. Meanwhile, the Council scrambled. Military fleets were sent to survey human colonies, only to return with reports of fully equipped, self-sufficient, but non-hostile worlds. Diplomats attempted negotiations, only to be met with firm, respectful refusals. Every attempt to coerce or influence failed. Why do they refuse to play our games? A frustrated Cerithian delegate demanded. Without participation, they cannot be punished. They cannot be controlled. And yet, they grow stronger every day. The answer was simple. Humans had learned that true influence does not always require dominance. By being competent, ethical, and independent, they had achieved a position the Council could not undermine. They were untouchable, not because of weapons, but because of principle. Even small species began to notice the change. Independent civilizations, long oppressed or ignored by the Council, saw humans as a model of possibility. Trade agreements flourished outside Council oversight. Scientific research accelerated. Diplomacy became a tool of collaboration rather than control. Humans were quietly creating a new order, one that prioritized capability and ethics over authority and politics. A human training academy. Young cadets studied history, science, and strategy. Arik, now older and wiser, discussed these lessons with his peers. The Council is panicking, he said. They think power is weapons and politics, but we are proving that independence, intelligence, and cooperation create influence far stronger than fleets. His mentor, Marin, nodded, and it spreads. Every colony, every new alliance, every innovation demonstrates that power without aggression is possible. That is why they fear us, even when we do nothing. The humans' silent ascendancy began to attract attention in unexpected ways. News of their successes spread across the galaxy. Council factions began to realize that human-controlled systems were thriving, while their own territories fell into disarray. Merchants, scientists, and explorers openly preferred human alliances. Even some Council members secretly envied the efficiency and harmony of human colonies. The Council's authority eroded further. Factions that once obeyed orders now resisted them openly. Trade negotiations failed. Treaties were ignored. The structure that had governed interstellar civilization for centuries was unraveling, all because a single species had chosen independence over submission. Captain Ward observed all of this quietly. "We do not seek recognition," he said to his officers. "We do not seek to dominate. We build, explore, and improve. Influence follows naturally. And when the Council realizes it, they will see that power is not always imposed, it is demonstrated." Liara glanced at the star maps, noting the expansion of human influence. "We are shaping the galaxy without force. That is something no one expected. Even our enemies cannot comprehend it." Humans continued to expand their reach carefully. Colonies were linked through secure communication networks, sharing knowledge and resources. Scientific missions explored unknown systems. Trade and diplomacy prioritized ethics, fairness, and mutual benefit. The galaxy began to recognize that humans operated under a different principle, that strength and influence could exist without coercion. Back at the council, whispers began to spread. "Perhaps we underestimated them," said a young Elorian delegate. "Perhaps the humans are not weak. Perhaps they are extraordinary." Thyler, the silver-scaled Quirilian, hissed in frustration. "Extraordinary or not, they are destabilizing everything we have built. How can absence be stronger than presence?" Zirath, calm as ever, responded. "Absence is strength when it exposes the weaknesses of others. Humans have proven that restraint. Competence and ethical action can command influence more effectively than fleets or threats. They are the mirror the Council cannot look into. Indeed, that mirror reflected every flaw the Council had tried to ignore: dependence on arrogance, manipulation, and control. Humans had chosen a different path, and the galaxy was taking notice. Every new colony, every peaceful alliance, and every technological breakthrough demonstrated that there was a better way, one that did not rely on coercion. Captain Ward stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the stars stretch endlessly before him. "We are not here to conquer," he said. "We are here to build, explore, and guide through example. Let them scramble. Let them argue. The galaxy will follow the path that proves itself capable. That path is ours to walk, quietly and steadily." Liara smiled, eyes reflecting the starlight. "It is almost beautiful," she said. "They think absence is weakness. We show them it is strength." Humans had become a silent force across the galaxy, not through war or intimidation, but through competence, ethics, and independence. And as the Council continued to fracture, it became clear that this quiet ascendancy could not be stopped. The stars waited as they always had, and humans moved among them, slowly but undeniably shaping a new order. One day the Council would realize that their authority was no longer absolute. Until then, humanity continued to thrive, demonstrating that true power lies not in domination, but in the ability to stand independently and excel. The Galactic Council had survived wars, rebellions, and centuries of political intrigue. Yet nothing in its long history had prepared it for what humans had done. Not a single laser fired, not a single fleet deployed. Humans had simply walked away, choosing independence, and in doing so, they had undone the Council's authority entirely. Months turned into years. The Council, once the center of power for countless civilizations, had become a fractured and fragile shadow of itself. Factions fought endlessly, trade agreements collapsed, and negotiations stalled permanently. Civilizations that had relied on Council oversight learned to act independently, following humans' example. Slowly, quietly, the galaxy was shifting into a new order. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring at the holographic map of human-controlled space. Colonies stretched across countless star systems, all thriving, all independent. Trade networks flourished. Scientific outposts advanced without bureaucratic interference. Education and exploration became priorities, producing generations of humans capable of thriving anywhere in the galaxy. "Reports from the Aurora colony?" Ward asked. Commander Liara Chen smiled as she tapped the display. "They have completed their terraforming expansion. Resources are abundant. Trade with neighboring systems is increasing daily. The inhabitants are thriving. And all of it is independent of Council control." Ward nodded. "Excellent. Keep monitoring. We protect only when necessary. We do not interfere unless we choose. Our power lies in our independence." The key to humanity's dominance, subtle as it was, lay in its principle: influence without aggression. Humans had not sought to dominate or conquer. They had built, explored, and excelled, demonstrating competence and ethics that no political maneuvering could match. By refusing to participate in Council games, they had exposed weaknesses the Council never acknowledged: dependency, arrogance, and hubris. In the Council chambers of Echelon Prime, chaos had become the new norm. Delegates shouted at each other, accusations and insults flying through the air. Votes failed, factions disintegrated. The very structure of the Council was crumbling. Greylor, the Cerithian delegate, floated angrily. "How can a species do nothing and yet be stronger than us?" he demanded. His voice bubbled with frustration and disbelief. Zerath's crystalline facets shimmered quietly. "They are not stronger because of weapons or fleets," it said softly. "They are stronger because they act with purpose, competence, and ethics. They do not need to dominate. They thrive, and that example is more powerful than any army." Indeed, humans were everywhere in the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as builders, explorers, and teachers. Independent civilizations began choosing alliances with humans over council oversight. Systems once ignored by the council now flourished, guided by human technology, knowledge, and ethics. Influence spread quietly, naturally, and inevitably. On one new human colony, Celestia Prime, engineers completed an advanced energy grid capable of sustaining multiple planetary systems without outside interference. Scientists discovered medical compounds that could heal diseases long considered incurable in council-controlled space. Explorers charted unknown regions, returning with knowledge that expanded the galaxy's understanding of life, energy, and space itself. Young humans, trained from birth in independence, ethics, and strategy, were now the leaders of tomorrow. Cadets like Auric had grown into capable diplomats, strategists, and explorers. "The council panicked," Auric said to his mentor Marin. "They thought control was strength, but we proved that competence and independence create influence far greater than fleets." Marin nodded. "And it spreads. Every colony we establish, every alliance we form, every innovation we create demonstrates the principle. Influence is not imposed. It is shown, and the galaxy cannot ignore it." Meanwhile, attempts by the Council to regain control failed spectacularly. Fleets sent to survey or intimidate human colonies returned empty-handed. Diplomats were firmly refused engagement. Humans had built their systems to be independent, capable, and self-sufficient. Every attempt to coerce or manipulate only reinforced the truth. Humans were untouchable without ever fighting a battle. The Council's internal disputes became more dangerous. Delegates accused one another of incompetence, sabotage, and betrayal. Systems that once relied on Council enforcement now acted independently, some aligning with humans, others forging their own paths. The Council had lost relevance. Zerath observed quietly. "It is a lesson they may never understand," it said to an Aelorian delegate nearby. "Power does not always come from control or fear. Sometimes it comes from competence, ethics, and independence. Humans have demonstrated that perfectly. Even minor civilizations long ignored by the Council began recognizing the value of human guidance. Trade, knowledge, and peaceful collaboration flourished. Systems previously considered insignificant became vital hubs of prosperity and progress, all because humans operated without interference or manipulation." Captain Ward reflected on the changes from his bridge. "We do not seek recognition," he said to Liara. "We do not seek conquest. We simply walk our path. Every colony we build, every alliance we form, every innovation we create shapes the galaxy naturally. Influence follows competence, ethics, and independence, not domination." Liara smiled. "And the Council panics while we build. Every step we take proves that their authority is unnecessary. That is our power." The humans' success was not without challenges. Some species resisted human influence, fearing the shift in power. But even opposition was met with patience, negotiation, and demonstration of competence. Humans showed that collaboration, not coercion, was the key to lasting success. Every attempt to undermine them failed, because humans had built systems resilient to manipulation, sabotage, and control. Back at the Council, whispers began to spread. "Perhaps we underestimated them," a young Aelorian delegate said softly. "Perhaps the humans are not only competent, but extraordinary." Thyler hissed in frustration. "Extraordinary or not, they have destabilized everything we built. How can a species that does not fight be stronger than us?" Zerath's calm voice replied, Strength is not always measured by conflict. Influence can exist quietly, steadily, and undeniably. Humans are demonstrating that principle across the galaxy. They are the mirror the Council never wanted to see. Indeed, humans had become the center of a new galactic order, not through war, conquest, or fear, but through competence, ethics, and independence. Colonies thrived. Trade networks expanded. Scientific knowledge increased. Diplomacy became a tool of collaboration, not coercion. Systems once controlled by the Council now acted autonomously, often following human example. Captain Ward watched the stars stretch endlessly before him. "We are not conquerors," he said. "We are builders, explorers, and guides. The galaxy is shifting because we act with purpose, intelligence, and ethics. That is our influence." Liara looked at the map of human influence. They thought absence was weakness. We have shown it is strength. Every system that chooses independence, every alliance that forms with us, every innovation that succeeds proves it further. Humans had created a new galactic order, one in which the Council no longer held absolute authority. Influence was no longer imposed from a central body. It was earned through competence, ethics, and independence. Civilizations flourished not because of control, but because of collaboration and capability. Years later, the Council continued to exist, but only as a shadow of its former self. Factions argued endlessly, trade disputes continued, and treaties were ignored. Its relevance diminished. Humans, however, continued to thrive. Their colonies expanded, their technology advanced, their knowledge spread, and they remained true to their principle: independence, competence, and ethics above all. The galaxy had changed. Not because of war, not because of domination, not because of fleets or weapons, but because humans had chosen to walk away and excel on their own terms. Captain Ward stood on the bridge of the Resolute, looking at the stars, reflecting on what humanity had achieved. "We do not conquer," he said softly. "We build. We explore. We guide by example. That is how a species can shape the galaxy without aggression. That is our path." Liara nodded. "And the galaxy notices. Slowly, perhaps, but undeniably. The Council may resist, but influence cannot be denied when it is built on competence, ethics, and independence." The humans continued to move among the stars, quietly, steadily, and deliberately. They had shown that strength did not require domination, that influence did not require fear, and that true power lay in the ability to act independently, ethically, and intelligently.